But these memories, I would wish to appreciate the African Center for Tortured Victims, because we went through several sessions of counseling for me to get the courage to even go back to my place, for me to get the courage, because my workplace gave me some good months off to really recover psychologically and physically, but to even get the courage to go back to, because I'm a current affairs journalist and these are the kinds of stories I do. But once such intimidations keep coming on, you think twice that, okay, maybe this is a profession I should let go. But we are still strong, and I'm sure something can still be done to protect and preserve this profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John Cliff. Well, the stories of physical torture, psychological torture, we've had them, and we watched the video before. If I may come to you, Irene, if you got the same assignment today and you're back on your feet, you're able to walk, you recover, and you're in good condition, would you go and cover the same assignment today?
Good morning. My name is Irene Abaloto. I work with Nation Media Group. Contribute content for NTV and Daily Monitor. But I have been a dominant member of Nation Media Group because from that day, I still remember the time, it was 1:20 p.m. on the 17th of February, 2021. Up until now, I have not been able to do the journalism that I dreamed of, the kind of journalism that I want to do. I don't want to sit in my house and then just make phone calls and write the story, and that's it. That for me is not journalism. I am not working. So I have been on and off because I want to work. But every time I go out there in the field, do my work, I come back in pain. And so, oh, by the way, I tried a few times going to the field and do my work against the doctor's advice. And even against my boss's advice that first heal. But every time I come back, the pain is more. So I have just decided, okay, fine, I will sit and heal. I have been in journalism for 15 years. And for all the times that perhaps they arrested me and deleted my pictures, and I mean, I didn't feel they were like deterring me from doing my work because I would still get my way around and tell the story anyway. Because when you're a writer, like I am, you can still use your observations, even without the pictures, and then get a way of telling the story. But where you're in your house and the only source of communication is virtual, then that takes journalism away from you. Some people say that the pandemic has taught us to be innovative and creative in telling stories and all that. But I think in journalism, if you're not out there, it can be very difficult for you to tell the stories. So I would like to go back to the story of James Sakanjako. I did a bit of calculation, and it's about 1,360 days since Sakanjako was beaten. That was on August 20th, 2018. Sakanjako has never had to go to the field and do the things that he loves the most, take photographs, and tell the world stories that perhaps no one else would ever tell. From 2009 up to now, we've had the military apologize for beating journalists. But if you look at the work that we do, and when you take away one of us off the field, and you're scaring the others who are coming after us, 2 weeks ago, on the 12th of April 2022, I was at Makerere University. We were speaking to the 4th-year students of journalism class. And people are running to PR. When they see me and I want to talk to them, they're more interested in hearing my story than the courage that I want to give them to continue with their profession. So for me, I think beyond the football match that Mr. Sempala was talking about, beyond the 1 million shillings that they want to give us after beating us, beyond the talks at the top, there is a way out of this. You've grounded us, like you've grounded me in my house for 1 year and so many, like 1 year and this is the 3rd month going. I'm not able to practice journalism, but I'm glad that at NMG we have a mentorship program, so I'm still able to transfer my skills to another person. But imagine if so many of us go through this. What's journalism going to look like in the next few years to come?
On that fair point, I'd like to pose you. Henry, how does the practice look like for you ever since that incident?
Thank you very much, Joseph, and of course, HRNJ for giving us this opportunity. My name is Henry Sakanjako. I write with the New Vision. I've been practicing journalism for the last 10 years. Mine is quite a bit interesting. Ever since I finished university, I started right away with reporting Parliament. That's where I've been most of the time. So I could just read about stories of journalists being battered, because at Parliament, I mean, you rarely get those instances. Unlike some of our colleagues that go to the field and they face it off with security operatives. But being a political reporter, of course, during political events, especially campaigns, we were asked to go and to the general field and report on certain political activities. So, 2021, I was one of those that were asked to go and join the Robert Kyagulanyi campaign trail as the new presidential candidate. And before I even take you there, 2016, I think I was with Amama Babazi. I was on that campaign trail, but there wasn't so much incident, battling of journalists and all that. So 2021, I was asked to go and join Robert Kyagulanyi's campaign trail, and it was very bad there, what we're going through and all that kind of thing. So 17th February 2021, of course, I was following up on his activities whenever he could go across the country. And 17th February 2021, as he went to the UN Human Rights offices in Kololo, I was with the Cliffs and, Josephine. And I came to interface with the monster. I'm the guy that is on the cover of HRNJ, report that is going to be released today. Yes. I was putting on my tie, I was tucked in properly, and I was having my pen and a notebook. I was just standing there to hear on the back. Of course, I tried to run, and that saved me a bit. But going back to your question, with all that has happened, of course, these people do whatever they do to intimidate us, to stop us from covering these particular events, covering some people. But as a journalist, of course, you're trained to inform the public. And we are the watchdogs for society. If you don't do that work, no one will inform the society on what is happening, things to do with corruption and everything. So many of these incidents have happened in the country, especially to the journalists, and I would want to commit, and of course, most of my colleagues have said, that this is not something that can deter us or bar us from, going ahead with our, journalist work and informing the society on what is happening in the country.
Thank you very much. And, I appreciate and applaud the courage that the journalists have exhibited, and the fact that even if there's brutality, we won't shut up, because if we are interested in the welfare of our country, if we are looking forward to good governance, we need the media. It's a backbone of democracy. If I may come to veteran, consultant, everything, JB Waswa, how has it been? If you look back in the days when you were at the front line, you are the editor on the desk, do you think today's journalist is overstepping the line, or what's the situation from your perspective?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Joseph. I think we must accept that we are living in very different times, very changed times, because there was a time, by the way, my name is John Baptist Waswande. I've been at the New Vision as news editor for many years. I was managing it at the Monitor I've worked in different places, but at the same time, I've always had a leg at the university. I'm now a doctoral fellow at the university. But I've done a lot of also training for Radio Up Country. So that time, in the early days of the New Vision.
The early days of the New Vision, 1986?
Yes.
Okay.
87. Well, Vision actually became, started in 86, but became a company in 87. The editors asked the president that what are the ground rules? We are going into this thing, but what are the ground rules? What will put us in trouble, what will not put us in trouble? And the president told the New Vision that if it is true, you will never get in trouble, however painful it is. And for as long as I've known the president, if it is true, he can, when he's very annoyed, he picks a pen and writes to the editor. He can abuse quietly like that, but not that they will send troops to beat a journalist and what. That was the working arrangement. And there are many times when there were people who were less tolerant than him. If they had been in his position, it would have been very different. I interviewed the late Abu Mayanja when I was doing my master's. And he told me that the reason the New Vision was founded and given that name was because those revolutionaries of the NRM, they believed in the power of the media to change Uganda at a time when institutions were weak. The judiciary was weak, the police was weak, the army was new, all institutions were weak, and they believed in the power of the media through exposure. And if you look at the law that set up the New Vision, and that one to a slight extent, the law that sets up UBC, New Vision, one of the mandates is to criticize government. By law, it is supposed to criticize government and expose abuse. But things, we are now in different times because that generation of people is aging.
Has that law been amended?
No, the law has not been amended.
Okay.
So we are living in different times. That generation is aging away. Some have died, others are growing old, and they are concerned with other things. We now are dealing with a very different crop of people. So as journalists, I think we need to realize this and change accordingly. Now we have to, the goodwill of the people who are there is no longer there. We need to have very strong institutions to protect the journalists. And I think when I last year I interviewed, I interviewed you, I interviewed Abalo. I talked to a lot of people who were battered for some assignment I was doing. And you know, luckily we have very, very bright people, very strong people, very passionate people, but working in very terrible conditions. And I think we need to start discussions around how can we do things differently in the times in which we are living.
I know you're an academician and you're a mature man and you're a diplomat. What do you mean by working in terrible conditions?
I mean the regulation of the media is very brutal. The regulators, I don't know whether maybe time will come and they separate UCC so that we have people who deal with the media and people who deal with the telecoms. Because I think there is a lot they can improve. The Media Council is trying. The Media Council is trying. But also we are dealing with the security forces who are, you know, who are so happy at beating journalists. And I know HNRJ has in the past tried to liaise to get these people, and there have been recommendations like putting giving training to police and to the army like the women did. You know, they used to beat women. Men would beat women. Policemen and the army men would beat women. They said, no, at least let the women handle fellow women. And I think the women went and started a course in the police training school. That's what police told us. Says, you know, you bring your curriculum, we fit it in there. So we need these things. But also, I think journalism schools should also do these things.
You train them that the female police officers beat female journalists?
No, not that they should beat female journalists, but they should handle.
How have you seen an improvement?
Yes,
after that training?
I think so. I think so. Even the women, the ladies, there are ladies here. you find that, you know, they are...
So back to my first question. Are the journalists overstepping the line?
No. They're not overstepping, but I think the problem we have with the journalists now, technology has allowed journalists to move beyond where they used to go. Now and that's a good thing, but in a way, I think we need to reflect more about it. You have now journalists who are, because of technology allows, they go too close to politicians. You understand? Yeah, I think it's extremely dangerous to get too close to politicians because you expose yourself, whether they are opposition, whether they are NRM, there are dangers in getting too close. Too close, I mean you can report, but I mean being physically and emotionally too close is very dangerous.
So the closeness to the source is the difference.
The
closeness to the source, which
I think you need
the new technology makes it intimate.
It makes it intimate, and you go. Yeah, I mean, you may be at.
You invoke wrong emotions.
But also,
yes,
we have journalists now who have double persona. What I mean is that you have, there's the you like
a cliff who is next to you.
A cliff is next to me here.
In the suit.
There's the physical cliff whom we watch on television. Then there's a cliff who is online. You understand? So you have another presence online. You have the on-air presence and the online presence. What did they say on, and they have huge followings, and they become celebrities. Now that has also complicated things.
Thank you very much. I'll pause you there for a second. I'll come to Dr. Sylvia. Doctor, you've heard the media and the subjects we cover are still the same, according to JB, for now may call you professor. The terrain is changing and a few things have changed. But then the brutality has intensified. You as the defenders of the human rights, and definitely our rights as journalists are under you also, therefore under the category of the people you defend. What do we need to do to defend the practitioners? Because journalism is not a crime.
Okay. Thank you so much, moderator. And I want to add my voice to appreciate HRNJ for this report. It's very informative. And also the documentary that actually speaks to the stories. In addition to bringing these beautiful ladies and gentlemen to share their experiences in actual practice. That takes away from the theory, and we actually look at the practicabilities of this profession. What should we do? I want us to appreciate that the challenges and risks the journalists are facing right now, or media, is not different from any other Ugandan or other practitioners. It is almost operating in that context where almost everyone is an endangered species because we are failed probably to address the root causes of why we are here. How did we reach here? Look at the civic space. And would say that, okay, in governance, rule of law, and democracy, we have different pillars. You talk about the executive, you talk about the legislature, you talk about the judiciary, but then you are going to also talk about the watchdog. And this watchdog now is the media, and the watchdog civil society that represents the public. So in civil society, we now have a common saying that talks about the shrinking space. And we've been talking about the closing space, shrinking. And at this juncture, we're speaking about closed. So you look at the operating environment as journalists, I've heard from the professor, what it was before and the laws that we're enabling, some of them have since changed, others have been enacted. We have now some archaic laws like the POMA that cannot allow peaceful assemblies. So the space is not that conducive for you to exercise your profession. So we look at an analysis. This report should actually look at the analysis. Why are we at this level of violations and abuse? Who is more at risk, even within the journalism? Because you hear these ones who go to report are more at risk than the editors in the newsroom. Who is the perpetrator, and why do we have this perpetrator? And how can we devise strategies that are going to protect those that are most at risk? We cannot be able to have those strategies unless we have analyzed the real, I want to call it the threat, the risks, and then we analyze and come up with a strategy. I would like us to note that as journalists, you are very, very important. And you have a lot of leeway to kind of shape and divert what is happening right now. But this cannot come when we are disjointed, when we are not speaking the same voice, when we are not in charge of the media houses. Because, for example, even if you said, okay, let's do some kind of boycotting, your boss will tell you to go and face the risk. And then when you say, let's go to court as a group, some of you will say, let me get the compensation. So the strategies have to be that strong and in line with the current threat. There is no way you can say that I report only for the ruling gatherings, but I will not report for the opposition. I will only report to the police, and I will not report where they are. You know, that selective reporting would not be impartial. So then you would be asking a question in these negotiations that Mr. Robert has talked about, the football matches, the diplomatic engagements. If I'm going to report on your weekly releases as police, what stops me from reporting when you are online stopping a demonstration or stopping a gathering? What creates the distinction that I should be in this news press conference, but I cannot be there? So asking those hard questions to the extent of saying, okay, if you don't want me to be online, now I'm talking about the negotiators, those that are in the room of negotiation. If you don't want our group to be out there, then maybe we should also stop coming here so that we are balanced. So the aspect of speaking one voice, cohesion, having a stand, because definitely you are speaking for the public, you are speaking for the government, and you play a critical role in information. You are the eyes, you are the ears. So if you want me this way, then I should also be this way. If you don't want me this way, then I shouldn't be there. Now, when it happens that there is a violation that touches lives, and it's not only Wycliffe being affected, but it's almost the whole of Ugandans being affected, like when we had the shutdown of the social media, the shutdown during elections. As the most affected profession, media, what is it that we are going to do as a test case? That the government begins to feel the pinch and they are able to say, we shall never stop this again. So even the employers or those who own media houses, what are they doing to say that our human resource, the journalists, when they go out there, they are affected, they are injured, they are brutalized? Government of Uganda, we pay taxes and we contribute to the economy. Can we have that collective voice? So the question will come and we ask, who owns these media houses? 90%. You know it very well. It is those in charge of the government. So then the strategy changes. Can we try to reduce the 90%? And we also have other, maybe 50% being us, the media practitioners, owning the media. So the strategies may not be like forthcoming immediately, but you need to analyze. What happened 5 years ago is not what it is now, and we don't know what it's going to be. Shall we continue to see our sisters limping, and we look at it as a normality? And if our sisters are limping, what about the families where they are coming from? And what is going to happen to the profession 10 years from now if the young people think that is a no-go area because there is no protection? Whereas I love journalism, I'm going to die so young. I'm going to lose my career so young. When we are looking at the problem, let us not look at solving it today. It is very good to do rapid response, go to court, do counseling, but we need to look at impacting and change trends that are going to make the profession one that everyone looks out to and thrive to be and enjoy to be, not what everyone will be looking away to run away. So I think my conclusion would be the entirety space under which we are operating. The governance question is a critical issue. Why are we here today? What happened? What caused the police then to respect media? And what caused the police of today not to respect media? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia. And as we've been listening and as we know as human beings, an attack on Henry, an attack on John Cliff, an attack on Josephine, an attack on Irene is an attack on all of us. I'm turning to the audience right now. We have microphones. We should be. Do we have a microphone in the house? We have a microphone. I'm coming to the audience. If you have a question, and please keep it brief. And if you don't have a microphone next to you, I have no problem with walking to you. My other life, I do lots of walking. Thank you very much, lady. Do you have a question? Put up your hand. We come to you, and please be brief. And yeah, I like the silence at the moment, which means the panel has been thorough and answered all the questions. And as we get the questions, let me come back to JB. We've seen the media changing, dancing, and Dr. Sylvia touched on one issue about the ownership. From where I stand, I'll tell you, we have 310 plus radio stations in Uganda. Less than 30 are profitable, which means they are able to make a profit. And if you are able to make a profit, it means you want to pay the people. And we have 50-something TV stations. One of the complaints we receive, here I'm speaking as National Association of Broadcasters, is from practitioners of the journalists not being paid. We may be looking at issues of assault and all that, but the issues of journalists going without pay is a big one. The guy who has not received a salary, how do you expect him to go out and fight for anyone other than himself? How do we address that as a media?
Thank you very much, Joseph. I think I would say two things. One, for UCC, I don't know whether we have UCC in the room. I think
I'll tell you something about UCC. When you're applying for a license renewal, or you have to file in your books of accounts. If you are in a bad financial situation, they are not supposed to renew a license. But the 310 I talked about on air. Please proceed.
I think we need to change the laws governing licensing. I think licenses there should be conditions. One, you must have the capacity to pay people. Take a banker guarantee. I mean, they should, so that you are able to pay for 6 months. If you don't pay people, we get that money and they pay the journalists. It should be a condition, really, among the other conditions, ability to pay people. And there should be a guarantee deposited in the bank equivalent to 6 months' salaries of the organization. But the other one also, I've forgotten what was it. About not paying. I'm forgetting my second point, which was yes, there's a time last year we were training Catholic radio stations. There are about 14 of them in how to manage radio as a business. You know the Catholic Church is a very big church, but it's amazing that it first run radio stations. You know, it's really amazing. Not only that, all these church stations. I don't know. Just don't understand why they fail to. Now, the last time UCC published a list of radios authorized to operate. There was none of them. So why? So but we had a training. Americans gave money and we trained the people. I don't know how they are doing. We need to do a review. But the challenge we found, there's a very big problem among radio stations. How do you manage radio as a business? You know, Because that's very important. Otherwise, you will not be sustainable. So I think we need to look into that. The radios can look for people who can train them on how do you manage this thing as a business, because it's not just a matter of playing music. You're a radio man, you know these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I come to you, Andrew, I'll ask a question. As you ask your question, you answer my question also. Dr. Sylvia was speaking and spoke of journalists. We need to unite, get a strategy where we speak with one voice to fight for our rights. I know you know we have 1,001 organizations and associations of journalists. All of us, we speak different voices depending on which political subscription has eaten us. How do we unite to speak with one voice to be respected? It's not me who switched you off. And I don't think UCC is here. Well, I think mine is on, so you can borrow this one as that one comes back.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Beyanga, aka John Walker. My name is Andrew Rumba Katsabe Atenyi. I am the president for Independent Online Journalists Association in Doja. It's an association that brings together online media. But I'm also CEO of the SPY Uganda. I've also been covering the issues that I've been covering the issues for which Wamala Cliff was clobbered and others. Actually, I've been in the media for the last 15 years. I started with the Red Paper. Actually, not even Red Paper, the Dembe FM. I also worked a bit at the East African paper before I crossed over to the others. So at least I've been around. Number one, let me begin by answering Mr. Joseph. The issue of the media coming together. You see, there's one thing I've always discussed, and I sit on the NAB executive. I sit with Mr. Mayanga, he's my boss. I represent the online media on the executive of NAB. There is something I've been discussing even last year when my colleague, Mr. Robert, hosted the other press index at Imperial Royal. I remember. This is still my stand. And I asked the journalists that time, you see these borders, very unruly, but very united. What unites them? A border, even if he knocks you, he's the one in wrong. If you dare slap him, they will burn your car. It is wrong, but why are they uniting? I think they're uniting to defend their space, isn't it? In a wrong way, but they're united. Even you right now driving that car right now, you know very well that you cannot knock a border or a border knocks you and you come out and you slap him. You'll have to be a little bit restrain yourself, isn't it? Why is it that police can simply slap that lady, slap the other man, and the rest of you are looking on? And all you can do is to cover the event and share it on social media? How? So, you people are educated.
So we need to be driven by survival first.
You people are educated more than the border industry. How have they come to defend their space? What knowledge do they have that you don't have? So the issue is about how organized are we to defend our rights. I will tell you an example, Mr. Joseph. Me, I covered the 2021 elections, but I refused to subscribe to that accreditation under Mediacom. I refused, and I covered the elections. When I went there, they told me there is SFC. They forwarded my name to SFC to vet me. At that moment, I told them, I don't want it. SFC to vet me. I'm a journalist. You're a soldier. What do you know about my job? Who vets you? You are SFC. Who has vetted you to come and vet me? So do these journalists ask this? And it is the main media houses, NTV, NBS, National Media Group, the entire, that even first wrote the list of those they want to be vetted by SFC, and they were vetted. Mr. Omala Cliff was vetted, and he had his tag, and he was clobbered with it. So, you can be vetted 100 times. As long as then you cover what they don't want, they will clobber you. They have called you, come here and we vet you and you have accepted. You know they are wrong. You have accepted.
So, Andrew, I hear you. And what do we need to do to make sure?
Let us learn to be together. That's why we have these associations. Let's come together. Right now, if you calculate how many journalists are we in this country and how many are here, if there was another function by a certain politician, there would be more than here. What time did they come here to cover themselves? What time? We were here discussing it, me and you. What time? Anyway, I leave that at that. The other issue...
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have mine.
Sure.
Of course. I wanted to give just a little bit a hint about... I hear you people crying about journalists being paid peanuts or even not being paid, isn't it? The issue is about the minimum wage. I am an employer under the SPA Uganda. I have had adverts by government of Uganda, the COVID-19. I have not been paid for 3 years, 2 years. Are you getting me? Government of Uganda contracted me to run their ads for the COVID-19. Bayanga, you are aware. I have not been paid. And government is the biggest client in this country for anything. Even if you wanted to sell journalists, the government is the biggest consumer of journalists and our media. They have not paid me. You people are quiet. You don't want to talk about that. But you want me, Rumba, to pay the journalists very well. Where do I get the money? Do I make the even? Do I break the even? People, the media houses that are making good money, please pay your people. Nation Media Group, Vision Group, please pay your people. But do not use this as a general condition. There are media houses up country that can spend 5 years without even getting 5 million shillings. But UCC will ask in dollars to renew their licenses. If they don't renew, they will be off. When they are off, these channels will also not work. So these are complex. You don't need to talk about low salary pays selectively about journalists. It's a national problem. And so if you want to tackle it from a nationalistic perspective. Who is being paid well, apart from the politician? The member of parliament who actually decides for himself how much he wants to be paid. Who else in this country is being paid well? Is it the doctor? The nurse? Who?
Are you paying your guys?
I pay what I have. Yeah, I pay what I have. If you want to be paid as NTV can pay, please leave and go and get it. I have no problem with you. Even if you want a recommendation, I give it to you right now. I don't have the money that can afford you. And I have reporters across the country. How do you think I sustain them when government has not paid me?
So you tell them to get the money from the source?
No, I don't tell them. I don't tell them that. It is wrong. But I am a farmer also. I'm a journalist, but I'm a farmer. I'm a farmer. So the issue is about not just relying on one thing. However, what I want...
If you may wrap up, because...
Yeah, what I want you to take from my argument is, don't look at the issue of just being underpaid or not paid as in isolation. It's a national problem. If you want them to be paid, please let us start pushing the source where the money should come from.
Thank you very much. Any other person with a contribution? Thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate it. Any other person? Before I come back to my point, yes.
Morning, everyone. My name is Rita Kebgisa. I am a journalist. I work with KFM. My question goes to Dr. JB. You talked about how technology is becoming more of a, to me, which I think is a good tool for the journalists, and how you're saying it's taking them to places that they shouldn't be going. Ideally, that should be like a right thing to do, going to places where they shouldn't be, because that's where the story is. And then you talked about the whole thing of journalists getting so close to politicians. But I remember in our journalism school, yourself being my lecturer then, you talked about we are told to always get close to these people so that we get the information. So if we don't get close to them, how shall we get these blockbuster stories or story ideas? I mean, it's the only way we get these stories, by being close to them. Though I do understand that maybe sometimes some journalists, not everyone, they will abuse that relationship. And when you talked about social media and all that, I mean, this is the era we are in, and all our companies clearly state sometimes when you're running your own account, I mean, it's you, you're not representing a media house. So I thought we need to also incorporate that. I mean, the things, the technology is the thing, and trends are changing over time. So we need to go with the trends. And then the other thing, maybe just a comment on unity. I remember when all these stories of Cliff Wamala, Abalo, Namakumbi being beaten, at the time journalists agreed not to cover police. But I'll tell you that maybe this whole thing of unity, well, it sounds so good, but it may not happen anytime soon. Because when you agree today, let's not cover the journalists, some other journalists who depends on a story per day will be like, well, if I don't cover this, where will I get money? I mean, at the end of the day. So maybe that unity is Libya. May not happen anytime soon.
JB, what's close but not too close?
You remember in your classes, actually, when they talked about being close to the source, I mean, you can contact your source, okay? But don't become like an ADC to the source. That becomes very dangerous. And we had one time, I remember that time when I was at the New Vision, we had someone called Joseph, and I not give the other name, but it was covering police. He covered the police until he behaved like one of the police officers. And he would say, these people are joking, we shall not allow that. He said, we put him out of action. He said, who? You who? So we need to keep a Christian distance apart, you know, say some distance. Don't get so familiar, you know. I mean, you can access your sources, very good. You can even call them by the first name, but of course there are things you can't do. You know, like a lady going to meet a source at 11 p.m. at the Serena. Wow, what story is that? You need to, you need to keep some distance. Although we are saying be close to your sources, it's okay. It's an exclusive. Thank you very much. What was the other question?
The other question, I think, was the comment to Dr. Sylvia about unity. How
she mentioned something about technology.
Oh,
yeah.
No. I think she was beautiful, but please proceed.
Okay. That's the reality. That's the world in which we live. We have all these social media accounts, and I was saying that's not a bad thing, by the way, but depending on how you use it. One time I was talking to people of Capital FM, to the lady's called, and the lady told me that UCC told them that if your journalist misbehaves on their social media accounts, we come for you, the radio station. Why? Because you get your own online following from your on-air presence. So for us, as UCC, we don't separate. You are the same person. So, and many companies try to draw policies which help journalists separate their online presence with their on-air presence. It's a bit tricky, especially for broadcast journalists, because you become celebrities. You see people are having, you know, they are media house on their own, and so it becomes a bit challenging. It's a very good thing, but depends on, and it also brings following to the station, but we need to see how to manage it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia. And as Dr. Sylvia responds to that, I will come back, starting from Josephine. You give us concluding remarks. Please keep it brief. Yes, Dr. Sylvia. No. You can answer and conclude.
Yes, in the interest of time.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. The issue of unity, we've already heard from our colleague. He gave us a very good example of the border. We should start small. We don't have to start so big. Let us look at the examples near us. We can even take a study of how do they do it. And how do they come to be that as soon as they have knocked, someone has knocked, they are all gathering around to see what is next. So for unit, you should know that what touches one of you does not end with one of you. It is about the whole profession, no matter the colors, no matter the media station, no matter the levels. So those who are brands and those who are upcoming and those who are there in the middle should be seen to be speaking the same voice if Abalo is injured. Now, I can give examples. Okay, HRNJ will come to court with a lawyer, but when this case is coming up for hearing, where are you in the courtroom? Are you seated there and are you visible? You can even put on your jackets as media, just to sit in the courtroom to make a point to the judicial officer presiding that we have a vested interest in this matter. It is touching us, all of us, and it should not continue. Now, if there is still negotiations that are going on, maybe it's the army that has perpetrated this brutal act. When you are going for negotiation, we would like to see that even when there is a press conference called by another institution of government, you say, we hold on. We have an issue to resolve. So that they begin to feel your impact and your importance. But the moment you begin to move different lines, then it becomes very hard to see you as one voice. There's also a component of corruption and impartiality. The self-regulation amongst you. Because the other party has to see that when you are even giving a story, whether it's for the opposition, you are balanced. If it is for the ruling or the one in power, you are still balanced. And you are giving a balanced opinion, but you are not giving it an opinion to sensational opinion. So that self-regulation, when you come together to say, okay, I think we need to correct some of these errors that make us look not good. So they should see you one voice here in terms of protecting your rights, but also the same voice in terms of improving your practice or your professionalism. There is also somewhere where we need to have a protection fund. A protection fund should not only end in court, should not only end in addressing the counseling. We've had Africana going back to do odd jobs. If there is a protection fund, you get your champions that have been injured on the line of duty and you make their lives much better. Yes, they may not get back to normality, maybe they've gotten a disability, but they should be living a better life that will not make them regret. Their children should not be at home because they cannot pay their fees. That protection fund should not be given selectively, but should be given to the lowest, the middle, or even the one who was at the topmost. So that way, you would be, and many more things you can think about as strategies to create unity amongst yourselves. As I conclude, we've talked about the many media houses we have, the pay. I think in as much as we have to maintain liberalization of the media, but again, you need to also protect the space of the media. We shouldn't be opening radio stations for the sake of opening them. There should be standards, the minimum standards under which a radio station is open. I wouldn't really agree with a radio or a media space that opens and employs more than they can pay or afford. The minimum standard should be that I've opened up, I can afford to run with a few as we grow, because we know that every business begins and it grows slowly, but the minimum standards. Of course, the minimum wage is key because it cuts across. It's not only media that is affected. I would also like to add on to say that as we prepare this report, and I'm concluding because I may not have another time, as we prepare this report, we document recommendations. Can we track? Can we track if we recommended last time, what has changed? Why has it not changed? Because we shall keep on recommending to the same institutions, going back, and nothing is changing. And even after this report is released, we should visit these institutions. Because like today we see, there's no police, there's no army, there's no judiciary, but these are the people, there's no members of parliament, and these are the people who are supposed to put into action and operationalize these recommendations. So a team of media should be visiting these institutions and say, we are here. Last year we saw this, and we recommended. We'd like to know how far, and what are your commitments as an institution? Use your strong placement. You are a strong force, but you don't know how forceful you are as media. We, as the public, depend on you to know what is happening here and outside the country, to know what is happening and what is changing, to know issues of governance and accountability. If you don't tell us, we shall not know. If you reserve the information, we shall remain in the dark. So just get that niche that you have and use it to your advantage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'll go on the other extreme end with Josephine. Please, I know you're broadcasters, you're professionals, so give me a sound bite. Your concluding remarks. Thank you.
As a journalist, but above it all, as a female journalist, we shouldn't be shaken. We should stay. We should fight for our space as female journalists. And our profession shouldn't be buried because of what the state terms as illegal. There's a point I want to make about what Senior JB talked about. Female police officers are not there. They don't always come for the operations. I was beaten by Napoleon. He was commanding a male crew. I didn't see any woman there. And I think this is done intentionally. They know the people they are going to face. They are women, they are men. But they only send out men. What is the intention? Last time I was talking to the Sierra of the judiciary, I told her, prison officers push us when we are in court. An officer came and he was about to press my breast.
Oh God.
I told him, excuse me, I'm on duty. So I think these people need to understand that there is a creature called a woman. There is a journalist called a woman in the field. They should deploy female officers. Compensation is not the solution. These people push for compensation. Yes, we need it, but it doesn't take away the injury. I've told you my back, even up to now, it still hurts. So if you compensate me, are you going to compensate for all the years I'm going to live? They should embark on emphasizing discipline. The Media Council has not helped us as journalists. We thought it would bargain for better working conditions for us, because we take it to be the body that is supposed to regulate us, but also talk to those that we cannot engage. But it has not helped us that much that we can enjoy our working space. Apologies do not work. Negotiations should be between journalists and the offenders. Up to now, Napoleon has never been arrested. He has never been put to book. He has never been held accountable for what he did. And I told the officers, my friends, that I will not rest until that man is punished for that. Because he did it intentionally. He came around, watched us, went away. Came around the second time. The third time, he jumped off the car and told everyone, beat everyone, chase them away. Seriously, you're a parent, you have children, and one of them may become a journalist. So if nothing is done now, if nothing is done today, the career is going to perish. Thank you so much. We should keep soldiering as journalists and keep fighting. Maybe as we continue to speak out, to talk, maybe something may come out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josephine. I'll jump to John Cliff. I just like to balance the gender, you know, not lady. Yeah, John Cliff.
Okay.
Please be precise.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. One, I think we need to get to the roots of why all this is happening. Like we said, it's not only about journalists, because even besides the traditional media, you know, even the citizen journalists, even if you put up anything with through your social media, still before the end of the day, you'll find a drone at your interest and they will pick you and take you. So we need to unmask what is there that is being hidden, and maybe to also really address what has changed. Maybe there are things that my senior here, JB, used to talk about during those days, and maybe the regime or the government was comfortable with them being said, and then right now, maybe they've adjusted a little and they no longer want to listen to the same things. So we need to get to the roots, and then also unity, like you have said, we need unity. But then also, we need to get to our ethics. My senior brother here, Andrew Yirumba, there are times when the people who use the new media, when they go overboard, they, as a journalist, it's within our code to always minimize harm. But I've seen them where they get their phones through their social media pages, they put out whatever without minimizing what risk to put out there. So we also need to reflect that in whatever we do. But unity is key, and then we should keep pushing. I'm very sure that there is still a chance to make this profession a better one, and then also make it a safe one, to make it safer for everyone, or even for the generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That word of professionalism and ethics, you can't overemphasize it. Henry, maybe for one more time you teach me also how to pronounce your name.
Sakanjako is how you pronounce my name. Anyhow, mine is about paying more attention on the report. The findings are very interesting, but I do want to say that these figures or numbers are a bit deceptive. Okay, we have made some bit of progress looking at how we perform.
Your journalist, I'll ask you, have we made an improvement, or the numbers are different because we never had a political activity?
That's what I was coming to. That the numbers are a bit deceptive, because when you look at 2022, when we registered about 174 cases, when they run up to the 2021 general elections. So us registering 131 cases 2021 doesn't mean that...
without politics,
yes,
without campaigns.
Doesn't mean that we're out of this. Yeah. So as journalists that are fighting for human rights, for journalists, rather associations, we need to keep the fight on. But of course, also we need to engage the authorities that be, especially on the issue of the communication tribunal. It came up in the recommendations. So you find that UCC is acting as the complainant, the prosecutor, and at the same time the judge. So without this tribunal, no one is going to fight for our rights. So we need to push for it. And also the Secrets Act is denying us access to information. Article 41 of our Constitution provides for access to information, but this particular provision, the Secrets Act, is really doing us a disservice. So as journalists, as human rights defenders for journalists, we need to work hand in hand and say that this one is dealt with.
Thank you very much. Irene?
Thank you. There's a question that I think world over journalists have failed to answer. Who is a journalist? What defines a person who is a journalist? Because if you want us to come together, solidarity begins by first us identifying who we are, and then we'll begin to now figure out what we stand for and what we want to be. But if up to now, if I ask you, Mr. Beyanga, with all due respect, who is a journalist in Uganda, we'll have a bit of a problem identifying who a journalist is, because the public see anyone who carries a camera, anyone who has a recorder, anyone who has a notebook and a pen and is running around with journalists to be a journalist. It's not the case. We've had instances in the newsroom where you can't trust your next colleague seated at the other side because you're not sure whether they're not a spy on the work that you're doing, especially if you write or you're writing a story that's about an opposition party activity. For your information, I refuse to cover Bobby until my editor pushed me to it at the last moment. I refuse to cover President Museveni until they said. So the question of who a journalist is sometimes scares us who are out in the field. You're running in a team, but you don't know who your neighbor or the next person you're running with is, and you don't know what information they're sending out there. The borders can unite because they know who they are, and they can easily identify what they do and where they do it. But for us, until we answer the question of who we are and then understand in simple terms what we do and where we can be found, then we can unite. And lastly, on the question of brutality or crimes against journalists, I think until we sit down and then begin to analyze the patterns and then also, apart from us saying medical bills A, B, C, D, and then that is it. Mr. Sempala will tell you that sometimes the funds are available for a certain period of time. I have been sick for 1 year, going to 1.5. The medical bills, I'm lucky to be a staff member at NMG. When my medical insurance got depleted, I had a challenge. I am sick, I am sleeping with my legs up all night, and you're telling me, write an email, do this, do that. I can't do that. So what happens in an event that someone does not even have the medical insurance? Mr. Sempala can provide 100,000, 2 million, 3 million, but as and when the funding can allow, what becomes of that person beyond that which they can give? So I think we should be thinking, even as you talk in your employer tables and all that, what can we do for journalists who are not able to, if in case of an emergency or in case of them being hurt, if they cannot foot 1 million shillings bill, 2 million shillings bill, and if HRNJ does not have the funds at that time, what can be done for that journalist who was doing work? As employers will tell us, we have also not been paid. So do we leave this person to die? Because I was at the hospital that day when I was taken. I actually saw a colleague who was in pain, but because he was a freelancer, did not have insurance, did not have any other thing, he was there, stuck. Now, we cannot, apart from the pain of you being stuck there, you're thinking of so many things, and that actually retards your healing process. So I think something must be done about this, even as we try to prevent these attacks against journalists, the ones who have been hurt. How do we track and make sure that they continue with their lives? Because they have the knowledge in their heads. Even when you attack them, as long as they still have this knowledge, one day they'll get up and still continue to do this work. How do they aid this? How do we aid this process so that the person is able to get back on track?
Thank you very much, Irene. Robert, there's an issue that has been raised, and from my sources, I know the Press and Journalist Act is up for review. They should be opening it up soon. We need to be involved and participate in the defining of a journalist. They are moving away from calling them journalists. I think they are calling them media practitioners. We need to pick interest into that. We understand what's their purpose, who does it protect, who does it promote, so that we don't lose out on opportunity. The people Irene is talking about may be now formally identified as one of us. JB, do you have anything you want to add? Yes. I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. Just to pick from where Dr. Nambiru left it, we need to get our house in order. There are so many things which can be done, and we have very many wonderful people, but we need to get our house in order. Secondly, I think there are two recommendations which should have been included. One, I think, first let me thank HNRJ for being my brother's keeper, but I think we need to take this campaign a notch higher. I think we need to start creating an East African civil society, because if you can't speak, the Kenyans can speak for you. If people in Burundi can't speak, the Ugandans can speak for them. Like some Ugandan media did it for Tanzania when President Magufuli tried to block media. So we need to become our brothers' keepers in East Africa. People have issues in South Sudan, people have issues in Burundi, people have issues in Rwanda. But what you can't do, let your brother do it for you. They make a noise, and certainly. And I think this is something the donors can support. And lastly, the other recommendation, I think we need a monthly bulletin in your media organizations. I think Dr. Nambiru talked about it. We need to report about ourselves. We report about other people.
JB,
yes.
Please repeat that sentence and emphasize it.
We need to report about ourselves. There's a study I was doing for ACME, and almost all media houses didn't have space.